to this week's episode of Ask Upwell. I'm Melissa Williams and I'm joined by two special guests today. I've got Deb and Sam from the I Am Enough campaign. So firstly, welcome guys and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's absolutely our pleasure. So the first thing that I wanted to chat to you about, Sam, was being the creator and the founder of Service Lane and I Am Enough. Can you tell us a little bit about the campaign and the inspiration behind it?
Sure. The word I'm enough is 3 words. It expresses the wholeness of who we really are. The wholeness of who we really are is our natural attributes: health, wealth, and success. This is our natural attributes. However, when we move in life, when we go through circumstances, when we deal with life, when we go through life and understanding of this life, we forget the 3 core words that we are enough, that I am enough. And that was my limiting belief for a very, very, very extended period of time in my own life, which I was running away from, which I was not dealing with well. And when I was doing the life coaching program with my coach, there's the module where we have to learn about limiting belief, and I wrote down, there's a lot of writing to do, so you don't really go through your intellect side of your mind, you go through your creative side of your mind. And I was writing pages and pages and pages and pages, like, countless pages of, because this is just creativity just flowing and you're writing how you're feeling, your emotions. And as I went through writing those, my last 3 words were I'm not good enough. When I wrote that, that process stopped, and I put a full stop, and I rang my coach and I had a breakdown, and I said, well, this can't be right, this needs to change, and I want to change, and I'm ready for change. So I was on this line of change. I recognized, you see, do we recognize that that we are enough? Or do we play this I'm enough, I'm not enough, I'm enough, I'm not enough stories? When you recognize, that's it. Change, transform. It takes a blink of an eye to shift. Blink of an eye.
Yeah.
That's the inspiration behind the whole thing. Once I realized that, once I recognized that, I really wanted from the core of my heart for people to understand this, and hence the campaign was created.
Amazing. We work in healthcare here at Upwell, and it's the self-limiting belief of not being enough so often comes up, and it can be a huge barrier to people's recovery. So I wanted to ask you just how prevalent you thought that this was in our wider community.
It is extremely prevalent. It is increasing daily. It is increasing by every moment. Belief is a thought that we think repeatedly. There's a thought, and we think that, and we think that again, and we rethink that, and we think that again. That becomes a belief. Now, we live in a society where we want any of our belief to be evidence-based. So what we then start doing is we start looking evidence for our belief. So we look at things, places, people, ideas, circumstances to match our belief, because our belief, our thought is so strong and is not stopping. It creates this momentum, and until we find that belief's evidence, we continue thinking that thought, and we find the belief. So in this case of not being enough, we feel we're not enough, we're lacking, there's a hole, there's a gap. And now, because we think, for example, I'm not good enough, now we think that we're not good enough. We want to do something in our life, we think we're not good enough. We're moving in life, we want to go somewhere from point A to point B. Our boss, our leader, our teacher, our parents then tells you that's not good enough. Bang, there you go, that's the evidence. I'm not good enough, match. So what happens is you become a match, you find the evidence. So it's an evidence-based belief. What then happens is evidence-based reality. So you create your own reality. What kind of a reality are you creating? We are creating the reality that we're not good enough. Why do we think we're not good enough? Because I can prove it that I'm not good enough. That's how strong that thought becomes. Now, the same thought can be replaced with I'm good enough, I'm happy enough, I'm kind enough, I'm loved enough, and we start to find the evidence, we catch the evidence, and then we start finding all this evidence that is so supportive, that is always been so supportive. It's just that thought. And now we find this evidence that we are enough. And catch that evidence. Don't let that evidence go. Stop worrying about the false evidence that you're looking for. Imagine you're a spy. You're spying this, you know. You're a spy. You are on this mission of spying how good you are.
Yeah. That's a really great analogy. So it's all about the evidence is what I'm getting out of that as well. People are constantly looking for evidence that they're not good enough.
Yes.
When we really should be looking for evidence that we are enough.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
So I came across a quote on your Facebook page the other day, and it said, "Never trust a man or a naked man who offers you his shirt." So I was wondering if you could unpack that a little bit for us.
Great. I love how you quoted me on Facebook. I was actually detoxing I detoxed 10 days off social media. That was great. That's a different story. That's one of my favorite quote of all times. It's an African American proverb, which is never trust a naked man who offers you his shirt or her shirt. What does this mean? It reflects a direct analogy of self-love. If you do not love yourself, how can you love anyone else? It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. We need to fill our cup. We need to fill our cup. We need to look after our well-being. We cannot be an advocate of well-being of others if we don't have that well-being for ourselves. Love starts with self-love. This self-love was this was when my whole life transformed. This is when I created and shaped my own reality of who I really am. Like I said earlier, our natural attributes of health, wealth, prosperity, and success. This is our natural attributes. Do we understand? Natural. We come with this. We have to fight for this. It's our birthright. We come with this, knowing this. Like I said earlier, we forget this. It comes under self. This self-love comes under that attribute as well. So I first heard this quote from Maya Angelou. She is my godmother. She is my mentor. She's just this soul who lives with me right now. She's talking. This is her quote. I'm so proud that you quoted me on this, and I can talk to so many people about this.
Done my research.
Yes. So I always come with cup full. Over, spilt it. That's what pours out from your cup is for others. We must. It is imperative for us to come complete, full individuals, and then share our love to each other and feel our love.
And I think it's such an important message. There'll be people watching this today that will be mothers, brothers, sisters, caregivers, but also for the physiotherapists and the therapists here at Upwell. I think it's so important that we fill our own cup before we can look after our patients.
Absolutely. If by any chance you overheard or someone is telling you that this is being selfish, this is just too much looking after yourself, mate. That's like you're just putting yourself first all the time. You got to back each other up. If someone says that to you, what I would say is number one chapter, selfishness. That's our number one chapter. If this is what we call selfishness, we need to come with our cup full and look after ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So Deb, I know you have a really interesting story as well. Can you tell us about yourself and your journey with the self-limiting belief of not being enough?
So if you were with me when I was 15 years old, back in 1992, you would have seen a young lady sitting on the edge of her bed, and I'd just come back from the psychiatrist where I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, or global anxiety disorder, which is, quite well heard of these days, depression and global anxiety disorder. And you would have seen me in a state of sort of a disembodied state where I'd realised I'd just been labelled by people who I really trusted, the medical field, which I still trust, but it was quite a confronting thing. And from that, journey sprung this incredible experience that I've had, where I've come through that and then learnt all about why that happened to me, and then I'm able to then talk to it from my own personal experience, but also from the research and the knowledge and the training that I've had in this area. So back then I had fused with these unhelpful thoughts and feelings around my mental health or mental wellness. And to me that was a very isolating experience. I started to fuse with thoughts around that I was broken, that I wasn't whole, that there was something wrong with me, that everybody else has got it sorted but I don't. And so you can see that turns into a situation where you start to isolate yourself from society, as well as having these scary and unhelpful pathology is real, but when you get diagnosed with something, often people can attach themselves and fuse themselves to the very label that they've been diagnosed with.
Absolutely.
And this
we
can be
see that so often in clinical practice.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's important to talk about it. This is, I'm speaking from a vulnerable perspective, and I'm saying that because I'm absolutely unashamedly vocalising what really happens, what happens to so many people, in fact, millions of people around the world. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we can actually say that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're very, very whole. In fact, you're very whole. You're just working through a journey and a transformation. And there is so much hope. When you get diagnosed with something, there is so much hope and there is so much opportunity to expand. And so from my perspective, my personal experience led me on a journey where I was able to take a 360 view later on, when I finally went through, after I went through 13 years of struggling with depression and anxiety. And I only had a turning point at the age of 28 when I was pregnant with my first child. And this was, it got to a point from 15 to 28 where I was on multiple medications, seeing psychiatrists regularly, where they were telling me that I'd be on medication needing therapy for life, which is quite a significant thing to tell a young person. That this is the end. This is your plight. This is the end. This is it. It's not it. And I and many other people are here to say that's not the end, because it hasn't. I turned it around. Everybody can make a decision to take action and turn their situation around, and that was what turned around for me. So, would you like to ask me? Yeah, I can go on for that.
Yeah. Please tell us more. How did you turn that around?
Okay.
I think we'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, cool, sure. So when I was pregnant with my first child, the doctor asked me what medication I was on, if any, and I expressed to her that I'd been on medication, and she told me that the medication that I was on was going to be extremely unhelpful and unhealthy for growing a fetus. So I went cold turkey. In that moment, I realised that you talked a lot about filling your cup up and being and a lot about self-love. I started to have like a moment where I expanded and realised that I needed to start taking care of not just one person, but the two people, my unborn baby. And it was in that moment where I started to the beginning of diffusing from the labels that I had hung on to for many, many years. And then I turned into the observer. And what I realised was if I don't take the medication, it will be better for my baby. I'm just going to have to find another way to deal with my unhelpful thoughts and feelings.
Huge letting go process.
Yeah, exactly. In that moment, thank goodness. My son is a fabulous young man, and thanks to him, he actually helped me on my trajectory to healing. So that was pivotal.
Yeah.
Pivotal change for myself in my life at 28. Fast track. I'm 41 in July, and so it's been a journey from 28 to 41 to be able to, I've gone through my own personal healing, as well as learning a lot about what it is to have unhelpful thoughts and feelings surrounded by the I'm not good enough story. I'm trained in acceptance commitment therapy by a gentleman of the name of Dr. Russ Harris, who's very well known in the industry. You've probably heard of his book, The Happiness Trap, as well as multiple books. He's a guru to me. Not that there's such a thing as a guru, but he's my mentor essentially, and he helped me understand a lot about the I'm not good enough story that so many people have. And even if you have the most the most secure attachment figures as a child. The "I am not good enough" story is actually so prevalent. In fact, it affects most people. We might find a couple of people here and there, but really it affects so many people in the world. And the thing is that you are not sick and not broken if you think it. In fact, our minds were designed to be that way. And it comes through evolution.
It's amazing how quickly it can just run away with the story.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that, look, there are 2 or 3 main problems that I see in life as we're living it right now. The first thing is we have a very, very unhealthy attachment to the happy ever after story. We read it in books, we see it in movies. People talk about it. How are you? Great, thanks. Well, what about how are you? Well, actually the situation is this, and this is, let's be real here. I mean, it's great, but this is what I'm really dealing with right now. Let's be real rather than everything's fine and dandy. I think it's time for society to start getting real with real feelings and being more authentic about sharing. The other issue, so we have an unhealthy relationship with the happiness, the happiness story, which is what the happiness trap is all about. These myths that society believes in and enforces, and parents grow up and teach their children the same, and so it's a perpetualized view of the happiness story and the happiness trap.
Social media has quite a lot to answer for on that front as well, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, like more and more with technology, we're not only able to compare ourselves to other people across the world, but with filters, we're even able to compare ourselves to a idealized version of ourselves. What are we doing with society here, where we're putting filters on to make our faces change shape, change color, change eyes, etc., and we're saying that I'm not good enough as I am now, but I feel better when I've got this gorgeous whatever filter on me.
Puppy dog ears.
That's right, exactly. Exactly. So it's true, and the brain has evolved to seek out danger, to seek out what may interrupt the ongoing nature of the species. We're always looking out. That's why we kept up late at night worrying about what could happen. But there's a famous quote by Mark Twain who talks about, I've lived 1,000 terrible experiences, but only once or twice. So in my dreams, but only once or twice may have actually experienced them.
Yeah, it's a great quote.
Up late at night at 3 a.m. thinking about these things that will never actually eventuate. So it's just the way our mind has evolved. As you said, when we use social media and compare ourselves to others, again, that's around just being. Again, the mind has evolved in a way where we're wanting to belong to a tribe, and we compare ourselves. Am I strong enough? Can I get enough food? For my tribe family. It's a natural progression, but there's a way that exists and that has existed for a long time around diffusing from unhelpful thoughts and feelings. They're completely normal. And I want everyone to know that they're actually completely normal. It's to when we buy into them, when we completely fuse with them, when these thoughts and feelings cover our eyes. I'm just going to cover my eyes like this. When they completely cover our eyes, where you can no longer see what's really happening in the world, where you're so tightly holding onto them to your chest, where you can no longer physically move and take the inspired actions that we take every day. That's when it becomes, it can turn into a mental illness, which is what happened to me. But there are other ways to do it. Look, if you push them away, really push them away, and use distractions and addictions to push all of these so-called unhelpful thoughts and feelings that we have about ourselves, about our I'm not good enough story, then it becomes an issue too. Then you can get attached to addictive substances to try and block and cover up what's real. But let's find the middle ground, not too close and not too far away. Let's sit with it right here. And I think, we belong to family within family within family within family. There are so many people that you can reach out to and talk. And yes, you might feel shameful, and yes, you might feel fear, and yes, there might be guilt, but they are also normal human emotions to recognise. And they need to be felt, and there's nothing wrong with them. And expansion happens when you're able to vulnerably come and share what you're really feeling to somebody who you can, sit with and trust, and to be able to fully express your self-expression the way it is, and it's okay. I've got something in my pocket. Can I share this with you?
Oh, absolutely.
It's for you guys, but also for the incredible community that you have with you, and so I just wanted to read out a series of words, and just right now, to take 30 seconds, just tap into whether you would label these good or bad or negative and positive. Love, joy, curiosity, fear, anger, sadness, shock, disgust, guilt. Now, I can't speak to everybody, and I don't have the answers from everybody, but just from
I was
you
jumping
guys,
out of my skin to answer them for a second.
Yeah, I mean, how many of those did you, for the most part from the research, it's 2/3 of those are judged as negative or bad, 2/3. But in actual fact, according to a lot of the scientific research, they're all actually normal human emotions. All of them, shock, disgust, fear, anger, all normal
Guilt.
human emotions, and guilt.
Yes.
And the issue that we have is that if we fuse too much to these things, labelling them as bad and negative, we start to think that there's something wrong with us. And when we start to think there's something wrong with us, we start to find all the ways, as Samrat said, to find the evidence to support that I'm not good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that ties in nicely with what you said before, Sam, about constantly looking for that evidence along the way.
Yes.
So you're a mother yourself, and this campaign is targeting not just adults, but children, teenagers, and also the parents of those children and teenagers. Why do you believe it's so important that we try and get this message through to the younger population?
For a number of reasons, but for starters, look, the younger population need to know from adults that adults are not perfect. Children often put their parents or caregivers and teachers on a pedestal as the epitome of, well, they're adults, they must know everything. They're adults, they must be perfect. They're refined, they've lived the years, they've mastered X, Y, and Z. And I think for a lot of children and young people, they start to look to people to say that they've got it sorted. And I don't, because I haven't perhaps lived the number of years they've lived or had the experiences that they've had. I feel that if you believe too much of that, you're actually setting yourself up for failure. I think that when it really boils down to it, and I can say this because I'm 41 and I'm a mother of 2 and I've experienced, like everybody, so many life experiences. I am in no way perfect. In fact, that's a silly kind of golden standard to reach. I am a human capable of all human emotions, and I make mistakes. And I think the lessons to be learnt here is stop idolising and pedestaling people, because when you do that, you put yourself in a pit. Start to neutralise that. And also, the idea around making mistakes is a part of learning. Failure is an incredible thing. In fact, most of the things that I've had expansion in my life has resulted from the mistakes and the failings that I've made or done. That's where the greatest learning lies, as well as all the fabulous things that you can do. But that's where the greatest opportunity lies to start, and growth lies. Exactly.
Yes.
For the young people, what I would like to say is, you really, really, really need to understand that you are loved. Someone loves you. Someone loves you. And you are heard. You are heard. Your voice is heard. Your voice is heard, and you matter. You really do matter. Whatever it is that you're trying to put out there, you matter. The wheel's been invented. You can't reinvent it. Doesn't mean you just sit back and think that, what's my purpose of life now? There is a bigger purpose, for the rise of this expansion of this consciousness. We're here to contribute towards that, and our expansion is expansion of all. Look around. Whoever created the iPhone that you're watching this on right now, who do you think created it, and who is benefiting from it? If that person just relaxed and sat back and thought that they don't matter, and once failure, they just, that's it. No, I'm also a chef by trade. What do you do when things doesn't work out? When you put X amount of gelatin in a cheesecake that you want to make, it doesn't say, do you give up making gelatin? How much do you love that gelatin? From me creating that, who is benefiting from it? We all are. So this is co-creation, this is expansion. So always look out for your expansion. How can I expand myself more from where I am? Not looking at the absence of what I want. That is on the go process that comes to you, and that all of a sudden becomes an all news, So, yeah.
And just on that point around expansion, there is one of the myths that we have in society around comfort versus discomfort. And there is a tendency for humans to want to seek a lot of comfort in life. And the more we stay in the comfort zone, the less we can really expand and grow. And so I would like to encourage everyone, and not just young people, but everybody. Everyone's young in my eyes anyway, as I'm a beginner. I've got a beginner's mindset. I'm just a baby here talking in a 40-year-old body. But I'm learning about life, and the idea around really stretching yourself to come out of the comfort zone, because it's on those perimeters, on the edge there, where we grow the most. And to make mistakes and to learn from them, and to say you made a mistake because you're human. And you had the courage to go there, and not because you're broken, and not because you're not enough, because you absolutely are, and you have all of the resourcefulness available to you. It's not a matter of resources, it's always a matter of resourcefulness.
Some beautiful advice there, guys. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? I just wanted to give you the space if there's anything else you wanted to contribute at this point in time. Any other advice? I mean, there was so much in that.
We could go for hours.
We could talk
do a
all day.
documentary on it. There's so much to say.
Well, see, look out for at Service Lane on Instagram or Facebook. If you've got any questions, if you need more tips around it, send me a message, send me a DM. We will keep you all posted on what's happening next, and provide with tools. Like I said earlier, I'm enough is 3 words, but it's very powerful words, whatever you put behind I am, it shapes your reality. So really, when the thought of I'm not enough comes, understand that and recognize that, and see when what triggered that. Recognize it. Recognition is liberation. Do it for yourself. Do it for your kids. Do it for me.
And that there are so many strategies and tools, and in particular I like to lean on the mindful practices that exist, that are so available. Mindful practices around meditation, mindful practices around just observing, as Samrat referred to before, observing one's behaviour, observing the thoughts and feelings. This radio doom and gloom is always playing in our minds. That's a normal part of the evolution of the brain. My mind is no different to your mind. It is the normal part of your evolution, and really just to become the observer in life, and to not necessarily fuse to these unhelpful thoughts, but just to notice them and say, that's just the nature of my mind, it just does that. Samrat and I a couple of weeks ago launched this nationwide campaign, and we had the very humble to say, and grateful also, that we had the opportunity to share this important message to over 44 radio networks and stations a couple of weeks ago, and we spoke to, I believe, over 5.5 million people. Which is incredible. And just on that note, not necessarily about numbers, but actually it's all about just one. If you can just spread this message to just one person, it has a domino effect. If you can spread it to 100, also fabulous too. And the more that we can get this message out, the more that we can talk about it and have really vulnerable, robust conversations like these amongst family and friends, and make a difference, because this is so important, and it needs to be talked about.
I agree wholeheartedly, and we love your work here at Upwell, so thank you so much for coming in this afternoon, guys.
Thank you.
And good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks
for having us. Thank you.